So, what are we doing here?
We're here to talk about a bit of a historical story, an uncovered historical story actually in my opinion. Because you tend to think that like Liverpool's history is so well covered by so many people and it's a football club steeped in history. There's no way anything could be overlooked, really, in a way. There it is. This is what we're here for. So a friend of mine who knows Sammy Lee brought to my attention in just a sort of a random conversation we had, apropos of nothing really, just kind of said that he felt there's a possibility Sammy might have been sort of owed a retrospective medal for a season from his Liverpool career, of course. He'd sort of noticed the rules had changed along the way and maybe there was an opportunity or a chance that he might be, you know, in line for some, as I say, some retrospective honour.
So you look at players in the Premier League now, you only have to play 5 games to get a winner's medal. If you go back to the 70s, you have to play 14 games.
And that remained the case for a prolonged period of time, really. More recently, I think in the late 2010s, it changed to 5 appearances, which is as we know it now. I felt compelled to have a look into what he said and sort of how much truth was in it. It became apparent quite quickly that he was right, first and foremost, but not only that, there was more to it than that. So one of the first articles I actually came across involving this particular story was from the Mirror, and it outlined the fact that Liverpool, Manchester United and Everton were all eligible to sort of apply for the medals from yesteryear, since the EFL changed their regulations to sort of fall in line with what the Premier League were doing as well in terms of the 5 appearances being enough. Following on from that article, it turned out that Everton had actually gone through with it. They'd actually addressed this in 2021 and they'd done seemingly a few players at a time. They'd done articles on them when they'd retrospectively awarded their heroes of yesteryear. And then I found out that Manchester United had done likewise in 2023, and that was actually on the pitch, Old Trafford, with Alex Ferguson. In the same Mirror article, it does also say that football clubs would have to give a written submission and an offer of payment towards them as well. So it is ultimately up to the football clubs to make a decision whether they want this to become a thing that happens. Then I started scouring through seasons and appearances and back catalogues of footballers. It startled me, some of the people we're discussing here, because you just don't expect it.
Obviously some massive names that we've got for every reason that they might not have got a medal. You know, people are in and out of teams, they're new players, they're older players, whatever, but when you listen to the list of names, you get people who scored in European Cup finals, homegrown talents, people whose names are still sung on the Kop today. For them to have achieved something that would end up in them getting a medal today, but them not to have it in their own collection, it just shows the type of people we're talking about.
Phil Neal, of course, the most decorated Liverpool player of all time. MOLBY, somebody who I grew up knowing he was one of the greatest we ever had, certainly in the midfield. Sammy Lee, as mentioned, a name synonymous with Liverpool Football Club, really, not just from his playing days. And David Fairclough, super sub, who again, certain goals always get spoken about a lot, but his Liverpool career, generally speaking, was a phenomenal one.
You see a squad picture of Liverpool back then, and there was probably about 18 or 20 players, if that. But you see it now, goodness me, there's multiples of that kind of thing. So yeah, they all had this really important role to play, and they were all able to step in. They weren't carrying any passengers in terms of the squad. They were all of a quality that they could go in the first team. It was seamless, the transition from whoever came in and all of that, you know.
Because of what's happened and the game's changed so much, there's 5 subs nowadays, and it makes sense why more of them get more medals than they used to. But if we look to recent times, look at what Jurgen Klopp did with his league winning side, with the Club World Cup winning side. Andy Lonergan never even played a game for the club, and he ends up getting medals in his collection.
I think what also people should remember is that, you know, the players who played in this era, there's great glory and kudos to play for Liverpool Football Club, but financially it wasn't that rewarding. But these lads we're talking about, they didn't earn masses of money, and they always had to have a secondary career. And, you know, the tangible memory isn't the millions of pounds in the bank, but to have a medal and look at it and think, wow, we were the best of the best, that's almost beyond value, isn't it?
Jurgen Klopp's argument was, you're there every day, you're part of training, you're helping this winning mentality, and these players were all part of that. And for them to have played the games today that they would have got a medal, never mind those who play 5 minutes in a season, then they certainly deserve the recognition. And it's a rule change that makes sense, and that's why it's here today, so why not go back? And it's a good thing that we're doing, that we're talking about.
I look back on now and I consider myself a very lucky guy. A very lucky guy, because again, I'm looking at all the memorabilia here. I know what this football club means to the city, and to the world of football.
Maybe he didn't have the most complimentary chance from the cop and that he's fat, he's round, but I think they really did respect him.
Going back to the group I was with, Sammy Lee was the one who made it into the first team, but he had to get ahead of Jimmy Case.
Maybe the thing with Sammy Lee is that him and Jimmy Case were so similar, and the fans were a little bit divided, and that one wanted Jimmy Case to be playing, one wanted Sammy Lee to be playing. Jimmy
Case was a wide man, but he wasn't a winger. He was up and down, up and down. And he was as hard as nails, you know what I mean? He could look at you and you'd whimper a little bit, you know what I mean? So Sammy had different attributes and got a great run in the first team, but that was the competition for places.
The reasons for them not obtaining the correct amount of appearances stem, and they sort of range from Sammy just was so in the infancy of his career. He was trying to break into a brilliant Liverpool side.
Yeah, it was frustrating because you always want to play, but again, you're trying to get into teams that had likes of, James Souness, you had Ray Kennedy, you're talking about McDermott's of this world, Jimmy Cases, and so it was worth the wait, it was worth the battle, and it was worth the challenge. Although it was frustrating, I knew that even when the time come, then I'd be ready, because you're getting challenged every day at Melwood, because you never know when the moment comes. And thankfully my moment came, and I wanted to hold on to it.
A fan on the pitch, a scouser, someone who made a real impact.
It was actually my 21st, and I wasn't expecting to be in the squad because I hadn't been there or thereabouts. I had a party arranged in St. Nick's school I used to go to, in the hall there. But thankfully I got included in the squad. Fantastic game down there. Always nice to go down to Carrow Road. Went there and it came out really well. As I say, we won 5-3. Terrific game. It was just a fantastic day, and I didn't mind missing the party, because just to be able to play in that game, to be able to play for Liverpool again, as always, is a big honour for me.
Your moment came, and you definitely made an impact, because you're down as having an assist for David Fairclough. Have you got any recollection of that?
Yeah, I have. Yeah. I've been playing the ball through to him, and as you say, Davey, once he's one-on-one with the keeper, you know full well it's a goal.
It was a funny season for me, because the season previous I'd missed most of the time, and subsequently I went away to play in Toronto for the summer in the NASL. Basically an idea to get me more, I was getting back to match fitness as the season was coming to an end. So Bob Paisley came up with the idea, he said, do you want to go away and play for the summer, not waste the summer, which I agreed to. When I came back, I joined in that, the September of that season. I pretty much knew it was going to be my last season at Liverpool. The fact that they'd let me go out on a loan kind of deal, and part of the conversation I had with Bob Paisley while I was away seemed to intimate that perhaps they were tiring a little bit of me.
Super sub, that became his nickname.
I don't think anyone can speak about David Fairclough without saying super sub.
And in the end, I think it was a little bit of a poisoned chalice for him in some ways, because he did so well as a sub, then he'd have to be put in the first team because he was so good as a sub, and then he never quite happened at the same level as a starter.
A player who, when it was called upon, made the impact.
Probably gave me, without doubt, the best moment of watching Liverpool live, The night against Saint-Etienne, they were 1-0 down from the first leg, scored first, Saint-Etienne equalised, Ray Kennedy got the second, they needed a goal to go through, and they brought on super sub David Fairclough.
If you look at players like a Divock Origi, is it their fault that they only get given so many chances? And is it David Fairclough's fault that whenever he came on, he scored, but he took a step back when the bigger players were back ready to play? No, you need those players to win league titles.
I came back with the idea to enjoy as much as I could the season. Thought, well, I might just get myself back into the squad kind of thing. Didn't expect too much. After all, it was Liverpool, so the standard was always going to be tough. But I did think I was going to make a few more appearances than I subsequently did.
For David Fairclough, it was somewhat par for the course, really. The fact that he never really racked up a huge amount of appearances in any seasons, it didn't feel like. So it wasn't a huge shock to him, nor to me, to see his name on there. Just 8 appearances, that wasn't enough to qualify you for the winner's medal.
No, and obviously down the years you look back and you see these stories, different teams applying for retrospective acknowledgement for players, and it's kind of been one of those things that you think, if only Liverpool had that same approach to to sort of seeing that the players were sort of again compensated in the medal respect.
To come from 3rd and 4th division Northampton after English, kind of and maths and everything, doing that O-levels and whatever at school down in Northamptonshire, I came up here and really was Bob Paisley's first signing.
Your dad found Phil Neal. Did he ever tell you the story about how he came across him?
So he's gone to the county ground in Northampton, because that's where Northampton Town used to play their football before they moved to the Sixfields. Down one side there were like advertising boards, but beyond it was a cricket ground, so it was a massive expanse of green space. So Dad's gone to Northampton to watch a player playing against Northampton. Game gets underway, 10 minutes gone, and the bloke who's gone to watch, he's never going to play for Liverpool, in Dad's opinion, and never did. So Dad's attention then goes across to this number 2 for the home side. It's the programme out, Phil Neal, okay? So he watches him and he likes him, he never gives the ball away, plays it simple, plays the Liverpool way. Technically very good, and just looked the part. So Dad's gone next time, watched him 2 or 3 times.
Jeff Twentyman, the chief scout, he said to me when I got to know him, he said, Phil, unbelievable. He said, I see you play at Northampton, because we go to away games too. His last game was to go away to Rotherham and see me play away.
What I didn't know till Phil told me, Dad also watched him play away, because he wanted to make sure he was okay without the home fans supporting him, see what his character was like, that kind of stuff.
Because it's a bit more of a test than it is on home fans. And so he said, I've gone to Rotherham, and he said, oh, you played left back, right back, alongside the centre half and the holding player in midfield. They moved you around like nobody's business.
I think when he went to scout him, he ends up playing in goal that game.
So I went home and told Bob Paisley, go and buy him now, because he can fit in many positions. And I think that is what I was probably good at.
Dad liked him, and Liverpool signed him. Bob Paisley's first signing, I think, £50,000 at the most.
And I was so thrilled when he pitched me in to Everton away, my first game. So difficult, but I lent into it, and it made me a better person and certainly a better player team-wise. And it was wonderful.
Call it fate, call it good luck, but call it great football judgment. He just saw him warming up, and that was the start of it. Amazing.
How hard was it for you to leave the football club?
Well, it was extremely hard because of all the things that we achieved with the red shirt of Liverpool.
One of the greatest Liverpool players of all time.
You wouldn't be where you were without players like Phil Neal.
You don't sort of associate his name with not making enough appearances in any season. This season in particular, 1985, 1986, is also true of that. It just so happens that he left the football club mid-season, actually went to Bolton Wanderers to be player manager in mid-December on 13 appearances. So 1 appearance more and he would have been eligible, but as it was, away he went.
The most decorated player in the football club's history, which, he will be forever.
He doesn't really need another medal, but he deserved them, and that is probably the best compliment you can give him, is that he probably doesn't even realise it's not in his trophy cabinet, because he's got so much other stuff in there.
In terms of, you're decorated, history when it comes to Liverpool, the medals, the trophies. Do you...
I don't like to be boasty. I don't like
I'll say it
to...
for you then.
But the way these
Yeah. So if you just hold it up to the camera like that, get it out, hold it up to the camera, and then talk through what it is.
All right, yeah.
Perfect.
Tell me when you want me to start then.
Yeah, whatever.
Well, this is a photograph of Alf Smith, sadly, when he was recovering from injury. And one of the things Shankly asked him to do was to get on his bike and ride the bike as much as he can to help the muscles to get stronger again. And that's Alfie in the car park outside Anfield with myself there by the car. Bobby Thompson, John Bennett, I think, was there, and Alfie with his sheepskin coat. Funny story I tell about Alfie. Tommy Lawrence bounced the ball and kicked it up into the night sky, and it came down, and the centre half from the opposition jumps up with Alfie, and they clashed heads. Bob Paisley came on with that limp he used to have. Shankly's getting more and more agitated on the line because there's no substitutes. If Alf has to come off just before half-time, we're in trouble. Is the boy going to be able to continue? Is he going to be able to continue, Bob? Bob says, no, I don't think so, boss. He said, just know who he is. Shank says, tell him he's Pelly. This is a composite photograph of, I think it's myself and Chris Lawler in the top corner there. That's Chris, myself, and I think that's Phil Ferns.
You know what, you could almost run clips of Chris Lawler and Phil Neal and you'd see a very similar kind of player, you know?
There's a good story about Chris, which most people have heard.
One of the great Shankly stories, you probably heard about Chris Lawler. At the end of training at Melwood, you'd have the staff five-a-side match against either the players who were coming back from injury or the youngsters.
And Shankly thought he'd scored a goal.
Shoot, goal, and they'd run away cheering like that.
Because could see it from the edge of the turnstiles because he'd gone off injured. And Shankly said, was that a goal, son?
Chris, you're an honest lad. Was that a goal or not?
And Chris says, no, I went over the pump bus.
Jesus Christ, son. He said, you never speak, and when you do, you tell lies.
They waited 2 years for you to speak, son. Your first word's a bloody lie. The first team squad in 1964, they won the league championship. Alfie Smith's on there, Chris is on there as well. Myself and Bobby Graham and Gordon Wallace were all on there. I think there's 20 on the photograph, of which sadly there's only 7 of us left. And that's Tranmere Rovers, where I finished my career. That's it.
Brilliant.
Jan Molby, what a pass from the football, you know what I mean? If you're gonna build a team and like the components at the start of it is like the fulcrum of the team, there's your man, you know what I mean? In any era.
He made the game look easy.
Let the ball do the work. Say we're passing the ball from here to there to like 20 yards away, and what foot do you want it on, Dan? Your right foot or your left foot? Do you want the advertising logo on facing the other way? You know what I mean? He could do all that, like, incredible.
The first thing I realised, I think, is this is a special team I'm joining. As much as I was a fan of English football generally, physically you have to experience these things yourself. But obviously coming to Liverpool, remembering 2 months earlier, having watched them win the European Cup in Rome against Roma, and I knew how good Roma were because we played Roma with Ajax and lost 3-1. I thought they were a really good team.
A player whose name wasn't pronounced correctly, but that was, again, an example of the time in that he was an exotic foreigner coming over, and Liverpool fans probably hadn't been used to seeing that. But what Jan did was he turned into a Scouser, I think, if you listen to him today.
All those things, whether it's touching the sign, whether it's a singer, you never walk alone, whatever, you kind of had to experience those and then ask people, what is the thinking behind this? Remember the sign, we walked down the stairs, we chopped this is Anfield, and I go to somebody, why? And when they tell the story, and the same with the singer, you never walk around, all those things. And so, you pretty quickly realise that I came from what I consider to be a very big club in Ajax, but a club without the same sort of traditions, and a different football club to what Liverpool is.
With Jan Molby, it was a slightly different case because of his injury that sort of caused his appearances to drop off, and he never really found his way back into the team thereafter.
So broken metatarsal, we called it in those days, did that pre-season, and you think it's going to be 6 weeks, but during my rehab and I had my leg in plaster, fell off a bike and broke it again. But I look back and I'm thinking, because I came on the back of the 2 seasons, 85, 86, 86, 87, I've had 2 good seasons scoring 33 goals, you know what I mean? So I don't think the plan, was for Kenny wasn't that I wasn't going to be involved. I thought very much I'm going to be involved, isn't it? But obviously injury took care of that. I couldn't bring him into the team, he was one of the best teams the club's ever had.
But never really get back to full fitness, never really got his place back in the team on a permanent basis.
Unfortunately, I only played 7 games in the league. That was down to injuries. But of course, that wasn't always the case for some of the players. Sometimes it was just due to the quality of players that were at the club already.
If anybody told me then, oh, you won't be winning another title again, I would have told them that they're smoking something.
It's funny looking back with hindsight. The clues were all around us. You know, lots of big players coming to the end of their careers, or at least past their best. The club in itself was kind of in a state of flux. Dalglish was coming to the end of his powers. There was the dynasty was coming to an end, but I don't think any of us were really aware of it at the time.
We had such a decade of winning. We just had a phenomenal team, and we thought we were going to carry on and go and steamroll, you know, the league for many, many years to come.
And actually, even throughout the 90s, most of us would say it'd just be next season. We just need a couple of more signings and we'll be back there again. So completely shocking. If you'd have come back to me in 1990 and told me this would be the last one for 30 years, I'd have laughed.
Gary Gillespie was huge.
He came, I think it was Joe Fagan's first signing, wasn't he? He spent a year in the reserves, which was kind of normal then. There was always a joke, you know, why won't the Pope come to Liverpool? Because he's going to have to spend 2 years in the reserves, you know.
Gary was one that took over from Mark Lawrence. And
he was basically tasked with the job of breaking up Alan Hansen and Mark Lawrence, which was an absolute huge ask for anyone, really. And then thanks to an injury to Lawrence, he ends up in the team. But, you know, he's dogged by injury throughout his career.
The first time I ever played against Gary was an under 21 international, Denmark and Scotland. It's amazing when you look at lineups from them days, under 21s or whatever, how few people actually make it. But you could see Gary was a great player.
He was such a rock in the defence with whoever he played. Young MOLBY actually played one cameo there when the two of them were injured.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I remember playing against Gary Gillespie on a number of occasions. It's to do with the quality of players at Anfield that Gary maybe didn't quite get the games that he deserved, isn't it? But Gary was a great player.
Although he always scored memorable goals.
Him and Mark Lawrence were the ones that actually scored from the centre half. It was Dizzy Gillespie, for sure.
We played 13 games. It was just one short of him qualifying for a winners' medal that season, and he scored 3 winners along the way. So you don't think about those aspects of his career. I just think about his injuries and how unlucky he was at times. But then actually he made such a significant contribution, particularly in that season.
Ronnie Rocket. When he first came into training, we thought, hold on a minute, he couldn't trap a bag of cement, this fella. Every time he touched the ball in training, his second touch was a header. But then when he got onto the pitch and he showed what he could do, he proved us wrong. A goal-scoring machine he was.
And I think a generation of Reds still say now what we need is a Ronnie Rosenthal signing every January.
We take him on loan. I think they've sat in the boot room, haven't they, the backroom staff, and they've gone, we need somebody totally different to what we got. Somebody who causes a bit of chaos, somebody with pace, somebody with physical presence, you know what I mean? And somebody who scores goals.
No one was going to knock him off the ball. Battering ram who could go through defenders, and a brilliant finisher. You know, some of his goals he scored are absolutely fantastic.
We played, we gave us a Ronnie, and then let's see what happens.
Unorthodox. Nobody knew who he was.
Made 8 appearances and scored 7 goals. You know, Villa were our nearest rivals, weren't they? And it was close up until the end, and his goals definitely led us on the way to that title.
And he just took the league by storm. You win the league and you don't see your medal until the very first training session the next season. And Ronnie Moran would walk in, put the box down on the treatment table, and he said, if you think that you deserved one last season, you can take one out. And he'd walk away.
It's a nice story, but I take it with a little pinch of salt. It's how true it actually is.
I think you didn't have the box at home in the back of the car, nothing like that?
No, there wasn't a box with league championship medals written on it, like, and the seasons all crossed out one after the other. No, I don't know. As I say, it might have been in a plastic bag. It might have been as simple as that, but you know, the lads doing their after dinner speeches and that. And you know, I'm sure my dad did go in the dressing room and give the medals out, but putting them in a box and throwing them on the side of a table saying, take one if you think you've earned one, because obviously they all knew he played the games type of thing. I think it's just developed a little bit.
So all of the names we've got who could potentially be owed medals in this are Chris Lawler, Alf Abersmith, Joey Jones, Alec Lindsay, Tay McDermott, Sammy Lee, Steve Highway, Colin Irwin, David Fairclough, Davey Hodgson, Alan Kennedy, Phil Neal, Jan Molby, Paul Walsh, Ronnie Rosenthal, Gavi Gillespie, and maybe most significantly of all,
for me, you know, I'd been at Ipswich, my club, which, you know, I won a lot of things, you know, say UEFA Cup, FA Cups, and then Bobby Robson, our manager at the time, went to be the England manager. So I couldn't see Ipswich being a force, so I wanted to win things, you know, and I was lucky enough to go to one of the best clubs in Britain, and it was Liverpool.
He came with a good reputation from Ipswich, and I think we were all, you know, quite pleased to see him come. But we didn't think he'd have quite the impact that he did.
Summer of '84, Souness departs for Italy, which the club's left with a massive hole.
And we were trying to move on from, you know, Souness, who was obviously just about to leave.
So what do? We go and find some more Scottish steel. John WARK had a certain way about him, quite a fierce-looking character with the handlebar moustache, long hair, real fierce brow. If you didn't do your job when he looked at you, you did your job.
That one season where he was our top goal scorer, he's a midfield player and he scored 27 goals. And it seemed like every game he played, he scored.
I always bring it up, you know, Ian Rush, top goal scorer every year, and one year he scores 26 and I beat him 27. That's a thing I always bring up and really proud of.
And he'd arrive in the box just at the right time, you know, to get on the end of crosses or, you know, loose balls, and just, you know, in the goal it went. You know, he was just sensational.
Well, I think when you go to a club like Liverpool, you've got, you know, there's a lot of great players there. We were an attacking team, and, you know, I was a player who can score goals from midfield, and I thought, I can do this with this team.
With someone like John WARK, it's not the name that jumps off the page to you and says, this is the one that's really gonna, you know, make this story or, you know, attract the most interest or intrigue, if you like. But it's my understanding that he was part of 2 title-winning campaigns, never racked up appearances enough to warrant a medal for either of them. Therefore, seemingly is owed 2 medals and may well have 0 medals.
Well, it's criminal in a way, isn't it? Because he's an integral part of our team. Certainly in that final season, you know, he was our top scorer the year before. To actually get him on the pitch, you know, for a title challenge and, you know, and an FA Cup challenge. You know, he obviously plays an integral part in that.
We can be grateful for his contribution in that season because of pivotal times.
In one of the seasons in particular, played quite a pivotal role in us winning the league, because we only won the league by 2 points from Everton.
85-86 next, just 9 league appearances once again, and you score an equaliser in a 1-1 draw with Manchester United in February. Do you remember that at all?
Yeah, I always remember goals against Man United. It was one of them that comes off the post or something, came along the line, and it was between me and I think it was John Goodman, and he was on the line and he should have cleared it, because he was basically, and I put him and the ball in the net.
And he literally scored and assisted in a game that we only won 2-1 against Southampton.
Yeah, I remember when he scored, and there was an assist as well against Southampton.
Never an easy place to go. They were a really difficult side to play against back in the day. My recollection of it being that Jan Molby with a bit of clever passing, as he often did, opened up defences, opened up Southampton's defence, and Ian Rush was very clever with his layoff, steering it back to John WARK, who unerringly finished from 12 yards. 5 minutes later, he doubled his contribution by getting himself into a really good position to nod the ball down to Ian Rush, and Ian Rush did what Ian Rush does and finished it off.
So that's 4 points you've helped us earn, and we only won the league by 2 points. So in terms of impact, that's pretty significant.
Yeah, but I think you've got to do that anyhow. Every chance you get at Liverpool, you've got to do the business, you know, and that's the way I looked at when I played. You know what I mean? This is, I'm here to score goals from midfield and, you know, defend as well and do the business. So I just thought it was a habit, because that's the thing I did. I played with a lot of great players. They made chances, you know, and I was I knew how to finish, to be fair.
So if you take that Southampton game in isolation, winning that game brought us 3 points. We go on to win the league by 2. Can you imagine having a player that contributed as much as he did, a goal and an assist? We have a player there that contributed so much in running down Everton and winning that league title, so nothing to show for it.
It's a very, very significant, pivotal impact on a game of football that Liverpool got 3 points from and then went on to win the league by 2. So that feels massive. If that happened now, we'd remember that, and that would be like the away day that was and the away day we still speak about in a way. So it's almost like the Aston Villa moment from 1920 a little bit, but it was John WARK that was the hero.
You know, that season was the one you'd have least expected us to win the double, but we went on and did it. And you know, obviously John WARK played his part at the end there, you know, coming in. Of course, in them days, the double was such a big deal. I think we were only the 3rd team in the 20th century to win the double when we did it. And Kenny's the only player manager ever to do it.
Great, because we've won it and you're part of it, but I wanted to be playing. You know, that's the thing, that you're sitting in the, you know, the dugout with the lads and everybody's, but deep down, yeah, I just wanted to be on there. I knew it was time to leave.
Yeah, it's sad for John in particular, because if you're going to go and contribute what you contribute over 2 campaigns, where's your recognition? He deserves the recognition. It would be nice for him to look at his football career and sit there with a couple of league winners' medals and goes, I contributed to that. We can't give him that moment right now. It would be nice to do it, wouldn't it?
So, what happens next? That was actually filmed and ready to go way back in March now, at which point we reached out to the football club and we are delighted to say that they were 100% committed and on board with us from the get-go. They've embraced us, they've taken us in, and they've made us a part of this. More importantly, it will be happening. The players that you've just heard about will be getting their retrospective medals from seasons of yesteryear in their career. And when the time is right, we will be part of sharing that process with you and the celebration, and seeing some players who've never been awarded league winners medals before get them, get what they deserve, as well as the players who've got numerous. So yeah, we are absolutely delighted with that, and we're delighted with the club's handling of it, which has been exceptional. A lot has happened since this became a thing and since we were ready to share it with you guys and the world. But yeah, I can't fault the football club. I can't thank them enough for how they've brought us in and handled it. So yeah, and like I say, thankfully, the end goal, the end result will be happening. So yeah, stay tuned for that.